Hi, welcome. Where are we up to? We've got to say hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Well, a couple of things. We love learning and we never stop learning. So a couple of things that we've learned over the last couple of weeks, because we haven't been able to fit a video in. It's been a crazy run through to what we can't wait.
Definitely in Christmas.
For Christmas, it's very exciting, but a couple of important factors. Buyer behaviour, we've noticed, has changed, not the actual market itself.
Sorry, say that again. The market's changed?
No, Nathan, the market has not changed, but buyer behaviour has.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Tell you about that.
You want me to? Okay. So, yes, buyer behaviour has changed. He's our auctioneer. His job is to watch buyer behaviour at an auction and make sure he's giving everybody a chance to buy. However, that also relates to showing houses. We've noticed buyer behaviour has changed at the open for inspections.
Yeah.
We've noticed the questions they're asking in their initial inquiries has changed. We have noticed their expectations have changed. But most of all, what we've noticed with buyer behaviour is they are, and I hate talking about them as they, but our clients seem to be very confident in their decision making.
Yeah, no, it's made quick. And there's probably a few reasons behind that. Obviously the time of year we're in and that run through to Christmas. But one of the biggest factors in behind, I think, what that buyer energy and the reason they're showing those changes is perhaps their knowledge around the lending changes that are forthcoming.
Yeah, I think there's part of that, and also a big part around something that we've been saying now for probably 90, 120 days. We believe we've actually passed the top of the market cycle in price, and we've actually come down a little bit the other side. So when we're talking about buyer behaviour, yes, there's definitely FOMO happening,
Absolutely.
The fear of missing out, and that's not necessarily missing out on houses.
No.
Because the buyer behaviour we're seeing is there is no fear on missing out. There'll always be another one.
Yep.
But it's the fear of missing out on what the lender is prepared to offer you as a loan.
Yeah, that's right. So, which led into a couple of our comments from a few weeks ago where we noticed those changes that were coming into play. So, what we have already experienced in the marketplace, potentially your situation is 100% worth checking at the moment. The new lending policies are affecting that borrowing capacity. So when we say the change in the buyer energy and that FOMO that's coming in, it's their knowledge as well that knowing that in the current cycle with their approvals, that they just may not be able to spend as much as they thought they could at the start.
So if you're out there looking to buy a home and you've been looking at a brick home with maybe 2 living areas, a garage and an ensuite, unfortunately, you may now need to reassess, and you could be looking at a fibro cottage with 1 bathroom that needs renovation.
Because one of the things that we're pretty confident in is when we say the market hasn't changed despite these lending criteria, we don't see any evidence that is going to suggest pricing difference in property sales.
No.
And there's a couple of influences behind that which are obvious. Everyone talks about it. There's no land available to build on. We need to wait for builders. Building stock is hard to get, so your timber...
Employment is strong.
strong.
We are starting to get migration back nationally.
And internationally because the borders are opening. We've had plenty of conversations in the last 10 days where there are plenty of people in the community are expecting their family, friends, both within Australia and also internationally to have Griffith as a place of home.
I was talking to a gentleman who's involved in backpackers and bringing in overseas workers, and he was telling me, this was only yesterday, he was telling me that of the visas that have been dropped in for applications, 50% have been approved.
Yeah, right.
So there is a little bit of a concern, he said, about the cost of flights and the availability of flights, but there is absolutely a big influx of people trying to get into Australia. So that is something really important to be aware of, that when we say the market is not changing, and we certainly don't see the price change coming, but we do see buyer behaviour changing, and there's a little bit of confusion there. Something that I think is really important to take note of is we're getting a lot of comments around the price guides on properties. And now, take a step back. Previously, price guides were looked at as being under.
Yes.
Now we're getting plenty of people after a property's being sold complaining that the price guide is too accurate. and that they were frightened that the price was going to go higher. It was a starting price, and so they didn't even look at the property.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing is some of our, well, not so much our recent auctions, but certainly many recent auctions in town, you've seen far less participants.
Yes.
Yet after the fact, there's a lot of disappointment.
Because they've missed out because they decided they weren't going to attend purely on assumption.
Yeah.
So it goes back to just making sure the conversations you're having with your agent as a buyer and a seller are that clear and concise point. Share your information, share where you're up to in your journey, so then we can do our absolute best to help you get a home that you want to buy.
Yeah.
But some of those interesting influences and what we could see happen is that may force a little bit of a dynamic approach in what happens with the way property does come to the market. Is it going to be price pointed? Is it going to be auction? Is it going to be off market? Is it going to be an inquiry range? So I think with the evidence that we have, there could be some changes in the way that you see property come to the market, particularly into the new year.
Yeah, it has been all auction for now, and I think that will change. What we will see change, if you're somebody that has a property, you may be thinking about making a move, is no longer will Griffith operate as a whole in terms of its property cycle. Yeah. What we're going to see is you're going to have the below average properties.
Yes.
They are really going to struggle as people drive the price down to take into account the work and whatever makes that particular property below average.
Yes.
Then you're going to have your mainstream properties, so your average homes that they're not a standout, they've got no problems.
They're clean, tidy, well presented, family homes. Yep.
But they're just an average home. And what you're probably going to see with those is that they're just going to sit at the current level, give or take, and it'll be really dependent on who is looking to buy that particular property. There may not be a hell of a lot of competition for the average homes, but there will be definitely a buyer at a great price.
That's it.
And then...
Well, the influence on that as a whole too, those stock levels that we have seen for the last 12 months and into the new year, there's nothing telling us that there is going to be an abundance of choice either, with the limitations for people still to move. So that's what gives us the confidence in saying that price point is more than likely, give or take, going to hold its current situation.
Yeah, so it'll hold the price, but you're not going to see these exciting auctions that we've had in the last 2 or 3 years. And that won't be an excuse for you not to attend. It's actually going to be your opportunity. So, and then of course you're going to have those standout properties.
Of course, the ones that really stand out, and one of the biggest influences that we see becoming such a big influence and decision for every buyer, investors or owner occupiers, the location. That street address in Griffith, as we continue to grow, is becoming such a high and prominent feature for people's decisions. But as we move in from that phase and what looks exciting for 2022, a couple of things for the sellers out there as well, just with that buyer behaviour, those that are making the decisions. Guys, there is that perception because of the marketplace we've had that the auction day is what is delivering this amazing result.
Yeah.
And it is very clear to us and the work that we've been doing that the actual auction day on the front lawn
is inconsequential.
It is inconsequential.
The decision, your buyer or a buyer has made a decision well before the auction day.
They're buying it.
That's it. So I've had so many comments recently where families have got all the information about who is or who isn't looking at their property to buy. We've said, look, you've got nobody interested at the level you want to be at. And they go, that's okay, we'll wait for the auction, as though the auction is going to deliver
an amazing
result.
Or the crystal ball philosophy, we're going to catch that unicorn.
That's it. The unicorns aren't out there. All the hard work is done a hell of a lot earlier. So if you're looking at auction as being the reason that properties are achieving great prices, I'm here to say you're making a big mistake in your assumptions. It's actually the work of your agent. And I'm not saying that because we're the agent, but it's all the work that leads up to an auction day. However, with what we started this, meant to be 1 minute again. What we started this video with was that buyer behaviour is changing. I can tell you that we're getting some of, or for quite a few properties now, once it's, that's unusual.
That's right.
Twice, geez, that was lucky.
Yeah, what's going on there?
3 times it's starting to become a pattern.
That's right.
And so we've had 5 or 6 times recently where our best offer has come within the first 24 hours
Yeah.
of a property going to market. What is interesting is sometimes we've not been able to achieve that price again.
That's right.
4 weeks later.
Yeah, and usually from the goal of heading towards an auction day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I want to touch on there is all about timing. So there's a big misconception that when a property goes to market, how long that property is in the market is going to influence the result.
Absolutely.
What I can tell you, it's how long your buyer has been in the market.
Yes.
Some of the buyers making these offers some of them within the first hour,
Yep.
they've been looking for 6, 12 months.
And in layman's terms, it's this simple. That buyer has done a massive journey. They've missed out on property before they've come to see yours, and they've decided that this is the one. That is that FOMO factor on steroids, and they have made the decision to buy. And that is why we say, with the confidence we do, we get that best offer sometimes within the first 24 hours.
That's it. So a huge tip from me,
Yep.
okay, not everybody's going to agree, but if you are going to the market, you need to be ready to sell to the first person that walks through the door.
Yeah.
If you're going to market and you want to feel the market out and you want to get feedback, you could put yourself in a position, and recently we had it came through our office, we had an offer made on a property that we said no to.
Yep.
The owner's instructions were, no, we're not selling, we want to go to auction.
Yep.
We went to auction and there was $110,000 less as the highest bid on auction day.
That's right.
I don't want you to be that
No.
seller.
Don't be that person.
So that is our tip. If you go to market, you need to be ready to sell to the first person that walks through the door.
Yep.
We are really sorry. We promised each other this was going to be 1 minute. I reckon it's 9.
I think we've done well.
Have a great week.
All the best.